Hello and welcome everybody, Nasty Bones here, and in today's video we're going to discuss settlement happiness. Now, over the last few months I've noticed that a lot of people are still struggling with this. I get a ton of questions and comments on Reddit, on Facebook, even my YouTube channel. People are constantly asking me what it is that I do to create settlement happiness. What's my secret? I get so many comments that they're just too numerous to even mention here. But people have been misled so much about what it takes to create settlement happiness that I think at this point nobody even has a clue. I mean, they'll ask me things like, is it the type of architecture that you build? No, it's not. Is it the amount of people that you have in your settlement? And as you can see here, no, it's not. They'll even ask me things like, is it the lore friendly builds that you make? Is it, how much lighting do you have in your that makes settlement happiness? Is it the type of living quarters? Is it the way you decorate your living quarters? Is it the common areas where people eat? What is it that actually makes settlers happy? Well, I have a lot of theories. And until today, they've only been just theories. Now, I do use them in my builds, and they do work. So that's why I'm making this video, so that I can show you my theories, or tell you my theories, and hopefully in this video we can prove once and for all what is theory and what is fact. Not only just for you, but for me as well. Plus, not only am I going to show you how I create settlement happiness, I'm also going to do it using only vanilla content. I'm not going to use any DLCs. I'm not going to use any mods. We're going to stick to what this game was when it first came out. And it's long. It's packed full of information. And I promise you, if you stick with it and you stay to the end of this video, you will learn things that you never thought of, or if you did think of, you just didn't realize. And hopefully, by doing that, we can get you that benevolent leader achievement and keep you from losing control of your settlements. So, I'm excited. Hope you're excited. Let's get started. Alright, well, after about an hour and a half of searching through saved content, I finally decided upon using the very first tune that I ever played Fallout 4 with. I'm like level 90 something. I'd also decided to use Nordhagen Beach to run our experiments with. Now I'm trying to highlight this little boy, which I personally believe is a synth, to show you that you can highlight a settler and anything that he is assigned to will highlight as well. This is a great way to keep track of what your settlers are assigned to. Not only does this work with crops, but it also works with stores and beds as well. Now you can see we're at 76% happiness. Also in this video, I'm going to be referring to the Pip-Boy quite often for two reasons. One is I want a time document of how long it takes to make settlers happy or make them unhappy. Second reason is I want to show you I'm not cheating by going forward in time or other saves or whatever to create the different types of scenarios that I use for creating happiness. Now here we are back at Nordhagen Beach. It's 2:22. It's been 4 days. It's a little after 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to highlight the synth again to show you that he's assigned to the crops. The reason I didn't take him out is because if I took all the crops out, I could never assign that boy back to a crop again. Now I do have 3 beds left here, but they were beds that were here when I came to the settlement. And as you can see, I can't scrap them, store them, or anything, so them 3 beds are going to always be here. I have 21 people 6 food, 0 water, 0 power, 0 defense, and happiness has dropped almost 25 points just in 4 days. Now I'm going to see if I can get some complaints here from people, and it didn't take long for that to start happening.
Hope you ain't one of them synths. Here to spy on.
You should know. People have been complaining a bit about the bed situation.
People are having to sleep in shifts. It's making everyone a bit cranky.
Now that the settlers are through complaining, I'd like to talk about something that I call a happiness factor. And we're going to do it while we look at a couple of items that we already know produce happiness. Now, I believe that a starting happiness factor for a settlement and a settler is 50. And the reason is because any time that you unlock a settlement or become aligned with a settlement for the very first time, if you've ever noticed, the happiness factor or the happiness level always says 50. It never says less, it never says more. Now, the DLCs did give us a few extra items that create happiness. We're not going to use them, but I just still want to go over it. It's the barber chairs, the weight benches, the pommel benches, the cat and dog cages. Now, it's not so much the cages, it's more the animal that you have caught with it. And I do know this as a fact that cats and dogs produce an extra 10 happiness factor for every 2 settlers. So if your settler started off at 50 with a dog, they would actually gain 10, so it would be 60. And if you had 20 settlers, you would want to put no more than 10 animals in your settlement. It'll just be a waste of resources. Another thing is the Brahmin. Now, it has been 4 days since we started this video. And if you notice, the 52, even though the arrow is red and pointing down, is still 52. And the reason I believe that this is correct is because the Brahmin give 1 happiness for the entire settlement. I have 2 Brahmin, therefore I'm at 52, and it hasn't dropped any less than that, and it probably wouldn't. Now, the date is 2/22, which we already knew. It's a little bit before noon. And I'm going to go ahead and hang out in Sanctuary for a while. It's now been 9 days since we left Nordhagen Beach. According to the Pip-Boy, we're still at 52% happiness. But you guys already know that the Pip-Boy is usually not correct in how many settlers you have or your happiness. So let's go ahead, travel there, and see for ourselves. Now, we get here, the Brahmins are still at their feeding trough. They're looking like they're happy, nice and fat. The settlers are walking around looking like zombies. The beds are still in the same location. And as you can see, even 9 days later, the happiness factor has not dropped any lower than what it was. But even with the beds out, it hasn't increased. So just having beds out isn't enough to increase your happiness. So I'm going to reload the save back to 2/22, and we're going to try something a little different. I'll put the Brahmin troughs back out, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a quick makeshift structure and see if putting beds inside of a structure will increase the happiness as well. Now, what I've done is I've put floorboards up as the roof. And the reason is a lot of us like to build multi-story buildings or settlement builds. And I want to know if that is going to be enough to increase our happiness or decrease our happiness. So once again, let's take a look at the Pip-Boy. If you remember, I did reload the save from the beginning, so it's 2/22. It's a little bit before noon, and we'll get back. Now, it's been 10 days now, and we'll see that here in a second. But let's see if our happiness factor is increased any. No, it hasn't. It is still exactly the same at 52. The red arrow is still, everything is still exactly the same. So building the structure we just did, it did not help us out any at all. And as you can see, it's 3/2/22 now, and it's been 10 days, and we got nothing out of it. So, since that didn't work, what I did is I reloaded the save. We're back to 2/22 again. Now, I did forget to put the Brahmin troughs out, so I'm going to throw them out real quick. The reason is because I don't want these kinds of things changing the variables of what we're trying to do. Now, this is the difference of this build compared to the last one we tried. I replaced the floors with shack roofs. And as you can see, I don't even have walls up. And we're just going to go ahead and check the Pip-Boy again to confirm what day it is. It's 2:22, a little bit before noon. And we'll fast travel out of here and let a few days go by. Now, 4 days have gone by, and I've come back. And let's access Workbench and see if anything happened. And yes, it did. We are now at a happiness factor of 59. So in 4 short in-game days, we have increased our settlement happiness factor by 7. And I'm just going to check the Pip-Boy real quick, and you can see it's now 226. So it's only been 4 days, and we've created 7 happiness in our settlement. So this definitely will help. Okay, before we continue, I want to touch on something real quick. Now, I've reloaded our beginning save, and as you can see, I'm highlighting this settler, which happens to be one of the original settlers here. I think it's the synth's dad. And you can see he's assigned to the entire row of corn there. Now, this is a way I keep order to my crops. What I do is I plant enough crops for 6 settlers at one time, and then I assign a settler to it. So I'm going to use these Totto plants, which produce 0.5 food. So it's going to take 12 of these plants to produce enough food for 6 people. And I'm pretty sure by now you all know that only one settler can produce up to 6 food. They can't do more. They can do less, but not anymore. And so we'll count them off there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right, we have enough plants out to feed 6 settlers. Now let's find us somebody to work it. And this young lady looks good here. She looks bored. Let's assign her to it. Now I don't know why, but it actually took quite a while for her to accept the command. So I went ahead and cut it out so we could get right to it. And you could see how she is going to be assigned to that entire row of Totto plants. I use this a lot. That way I keep order to my, my plants and my settlements. Alright, now we find ourselves here at Bunker Hill. And there's a reason why. Since I'm doing this build with nothing but vanilla content, there's something here that I haven't gotten yet. And, I'm going to need every little bit of help I can get. And since I haven't done it, I thought I'd just go ahead and show you what it takes to get it.
Hi.
Hey again. Step right up. Little bit of everything from all over.
You have any paying work?
Yeah, I have something. It ain't easy, though. Caravanners just love swapping tall tales. But I've heard one story enough times, there's gotta be some truth to it. Apparently, the Northern Road goes straight through an old military training yard that's just crawling with a horde of feral ghouls. And that's cutting into my bottom line. So you take care of that, and maybe I can throw a few caps your way.
I already cleared the National Guard training yard.
Well, I'll be. Take this, then. You might want to talk with Kessler, by the by. She's looking for someone like you.
Alright, let's go find Kessler real quick. Now, I didn't know this, but people have had a hard time finding her sometimes. Now, I am aligned with this settlement, but usually she's right here where I'm looking now, doing Totto plants, or she's over here with the corn. Interesting fact, sometimes Kessler cannot be found at all, usually between the hours of 11 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning. What she does and where she goes, I have no idea. But if you ever see her any other time besides that, shoot me a comment and let me know. I'd love to know what she's doing.
Says you get results. I got a sensitive job that needs someone with skills and more rolling around in their head than marbles. That sound like you?
I've had no complaints so far.
Really? Where have you been all my life? Our town works because everyone knows we got the raider angle covered. The gangs get paid off and leave our caravans alone. But Zeller's army is getting greedy, asking for more caps. And after we pay them, the bastards still hit our people. But I found out the army's holed up in an old prep school. The job's simple. Deal with them.
Consider Zeller's army dealt with.
These guys are dangerous, so be careful. If there are survivors, rescue them. If any lost caravan hands make their way back into circulation, that'll do wonders for trade. But above all, you're just a freelancer working for yourself. Never even heard of us on the hill, right?
Right, just like you've never heard about a bar of soap. Now, I didn't want to show the whole run-through, but one thing I did want to point out is there is a magazine here. So I just wanted to show you the location real quick, in case you didn't know. It's in the very far back room where Zeller's hanging out. And it's an awesome Tales. And I'll go ahead and loot the hell out of this place. It's got a lot of cool stuff, which another thing is pretty cool is this toilet. We got 2 mannequins in here wearing plastic pumpkins, and there's a bunch of bubble gum in the toilet. That's probably going to be pretty tasty. And apparently the plastic pumpkins hold up the mannequins as well. Now, don't forget, to rescue the caravan hands. It does net you a little extra XP and money. And then return back to Kessler.
One of the prisoners
Back
told me what
hurts,
they went through at the
feet
prep
hurt.
school. Here to spy.
Everything
I had
hurts.
no idea. And you did that by yourself, right? Here's the payout.
Glad it turned out well.
I'm happy you're on our side. With your help, the roads are a lot safer. Heard you got land of your own. Tell you what, build a safe place for the caravans to stop, and everyone can profit. But either way, you're welcome back to the hill anytime.
And now you see why we went ahead and went and did those 2 quests. After completing them, you'll actually be able to build a caravan station at your settlements. Now, when I got back, it was quite late at night, and it's dark, but you can see it's 2:26. It's literally 4 days since the start of our experiment. I do have most of the settlement built at this time. I want to show it to you during the daytime. So we're just kind of taking a quick look at this very simple layout and settlement. This is the living quarters. I got water back there. We're just going to jump into bed, get some rest. It's been a hard 4 days. And then we'll take a look at this in the daytime. And then I'll point out each and everything that I think creates happiness in a settlement. Now, here it is on the 27th. So it's now 5 days since our experiment. And just keep this in mind. Everything that I'm going to point out, I do believe is a factor to happiness. First, the guard stations and the defenses. A settler can be assigned to up to 3 guard stations. And you can see 2 are in the entrance, and 1's way off in the distance where the guard's actually at right now. Now, this is the caravan station that I was able to create by doing the 2 quests that we just got through doing. Once again, very important as a happiness factor. Next thing I think is hugely overlooked, this siren. This siren is a big factor in happiness. Go check out my legendary farm for survival mode if you don't believe me. Next thing, make sure you get your workbenches out. Another thing, cooking station. Very important that settlers can cook the food. The next thing is plants. Do not ever plant all the same food for your settlers. Plant a variety. That way they can have a choice of what they want to eat. I do believe this is a huge factor in settlement happiness. The next thing is, don't forget to get your recruitment beacon out. The recruitment beacon is huge for happiness. Hello, Synth Boy. How are you? Now, one thing that I haven't done yet, and there's a reason why, is I have not assigned anybody to workstations or to stores yet. And the reason is I want to show you how high I can get the happiness in this settlement and not have not one store actually going. Now I do have them out, nobody's assigned to them, and we'll see that shortly. I do got a water purifier out producing 40 water. I did use a fusion core generator. Even though that is not vanilla, it has no factor in happiness. I just needed it for the size limit that I was getting close to run all the defenses that I had up. Now the living quarters are very humble and very modest. I've just got beds everywhere, a few chairs. As you can see, I've got upper shack floors, which are roofs and floors for my second story. A few more beds up here, a little bit of lighting, nothing major at all. And once again, the fusion core just to power all of the defenses that I do have up. Now, one thing I'd like to take a quick note on is I do believe chairs play an important part in happiness as well. I do try to put 2 chairs up for every settler I got. I've got 21 settlers, therefore I have 42 chairs out somewhere in the settlement. And as you can see, none of my stores have anybody assigned to them. They're just out, so when this experiment's done, I can go ahead and get people assigned to them. Alright, now the next few segments are going to go by pretty quick, so let's take a note on a couple of things. Our happiness factor, 55. Today's date is the 27th. I left. I came back. It has just been 5 in-game days. Today is now the 2nd. So, in 5 days, let's see what our happiness factor has grown to, what we are now at. And I'll access work mode. And, oh, wow, 67. So in 5 short days, we have actually gained 12 points in our happiness factor. And it says we can still keep, it's still growing. So let's leave and see what we get. Okay, I left, I came back. It's now been 4 days. It's now the 6th. So in just another short 4 days, let's see what we've actually gained here. I'll bring up work mode again, and we are now at 75, a factor of 75. So in these 4 days, we gained another 8 points. We are growing great, and it still says we can get more out of this. So let's check the Pip-Boy again real quick just to confirm what the date is today, which, if you remember right, it's the 6th. And then let's leave and come back in a few more days and see what we can actually get out of this settlement. Alright, so we fast travel out, we fast travel back. It is now 4 days later. It's now the 10th. And if my calculations are correct, we should be somewhere around 4 or 5 extra points in happiness. So let's go ahead, go on into the settlement, and take a look in work mode and see what we've actually got our happiness factor up to. And it's 79, so I was correct. We got 4 points of happiness in the last 4 days. And it says we're still growing. So let's leave and come back and see what we can actually hit our cap at. Now for this next part, what I did is I showed me loading into the game so that you don't think that I actually did stuff to create happiness. You can actually see I loaded in, came right in. We're going to go ahead and take a look and see what we've actually reached here. We'll take a look at the Pip-Boy. It's only been 2 days since we were here. It's now the 12th. And let's access the workbench and see what we're at. And 80. 80 is the cap that we reached. And you can tell because now we have the red arrow pointing down. So now all I got to do is just go ahead and assign me some settlers to my stores. And with the 3 stores that produce happiness, 4 stores, that produce happiness, I should easily be able to hit a cap of 95 to 100 with this settlement. And while I'm doing it, let's just take a note on several things here and go over all this stuff. In your workbench, in your work mode, there's a thing called resources, a section. Pretty much everything in that section generates happiness, even though it doesn't say it does. So get them out, put them up. Get your settlers using those resources. That's what they're named for. Another thing was roofs over beds. That's why Bethesda gave us upper shack floors, so we could build multi-story buildings and still have a roof over our settlers' heads. If you build a 2-story building and then put a roof over that, it does not count for the first floor. The first floor has to have a roof over it, and every floor that you built above that. If it has a bed, now if it doesn't have a bed, then it doesn't make a difference. It's the bed factor that comes into play for that. Also, don't forget about the food. Food plays a huge part in your settlement's happiness factor. If you plant all the same crops, your settlers have no choice in what to eat. So always make sure you have a variety of food for your settlers. Also, chairs. I mean, come on. How happy would you be if you had to stand around all day? Okay. Now, since this video's taken so long, I don't want to waste a bunch more time trying to get the happiness factor to 95 or even possibly 100. So I want to take us over to another build of mine, my legendary farm. And here, once again, I can prove that all the things I talked about in this video do work. I've used them in this build, and here in a second we'll see that my happiness factor at this settlement is 95. Also, there's one other thing I'd like to talk about, and that's defenses, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's access the workbench to see what we got. I've got 6 people, I've got 12 food, 6 water, and I've got 163 defenses. I only have 3 stores up. And even with just 3 stores, my happiness factor is at 95. Okay. Now, doing this here, what I'm showing is that I actually just fast traveled right over here. It's still the 12th. I didn't go to a different save. I didn't go to a different game or a different character to show you this. This is loaded in right after we left Nordhagen Beach. Now, let's talk about the defenses a little more. Have you ever gone to a settlement and they said, there's got to be something that we can do to stop these attacks, or whatever? There are 3 or 4 different comments that settlers will make about it. The reason is even though your defenses are not red, you are in the green, it's still not enough. And I've discovered what that number is that stops those comments, and it's 150. So anything 150 defense or more will stop those comments. Plus, as a bonus, you will hardly ever get attacked there. You will hardly ever get a prompt saying that settlement is under attack. And if you do get attacked there, and you choose not to go or are too busy doing something and can't make it, they will every time successfully defend themselves. And you'll no longer get the little pop-ups or prompts saying that you failed to defend that settlement because you didn't show up. And that only will increase your settlers' happiness. And even though this is a legendary farm and they get attacked all the time, you can see my happiness factor is at 95 right there. Well, I really hope these tips and tricks that I showed in this video today help you as much as it helps me. Shoot me a comment. Let me know what you guys thought. Maybe you have a friend struggling with these issues. Share it with him. Let him know how it works. Also, please subscribe. I have a lot more content coming out that I'd love to share with you guys. Alright, everybody. Thank you, and until next time, stay safe.